Imagine this: less than 0.2% of the world's population, roughly 15 to 20 million people worldwide, compared to 8 billion in total. Yet somehow, this tiny community contributes nearly 40 to 50% of the richest billionaires in the world. That's right.
A lot of anti-Semitism is, what are they doing that causes them to be disproportionately successful? What are we doing? I think a real focus on education.
Out of every 2 billionaires sitting at the top of global wealth lists, chances are one is Jewish. The numbers alone make people pause. How can such a small group hold so much wealth, power, and global influence? And maybe the even bigger question, what lessons can we learn from their story? Because the truth is, this didn't happen overnight. It's not luck, and it's not coincidence. This pattern was built over centuries of hardship, resilience, culture, and strategy. To understand it, we need to go back in time. For much of history, Jews were outsiders. In medieval Europe, they weren't allowed to own land, join many guilds, or even live freely in certain towns. They faced constant persecution, expulsions, and restrictions. In fact, Jewish communities were expelled from England in 1290, from Spain in 1492, and from countless German states at different times. Wherever they went, they were treated with suspicion. But here's the twist. Because they were shut out from farming and many traditional trades, Jews were forced into jobs that Christians either couldn't do or didn't want to do. And one of those jobs was money lending. At that time, the Catholic Church considered charging interest sinful, but Jews, who were not bound by church law, could lend money with interest. This made them the bankers of medieval Europe. Kings, nobles, and merchants came to Jewish financiers to borrow money for wars, trade, and building projects. It wasn't glamorous. In fact, it made Jews even more resented. They became easy scapegoats during economic crises. Yet, over centuries, this role gave Jewish communities something extremely valuable: financial literacy, international connections, and expertise in trade. But money lending alone doesn't explain everything. Another major factor was culture. From ancient times, Jewish tradition placed enormous value on literacy and education. The Torah had to be studied, memorized, and debated. Rabbis and scholars were revered. Even the poorest families prioritized schooling for their children because knowledge was seen as wealth that no one could steal. So while many peasants across Europe remained illiterate, Jewish children often grew up reading, writing, and learning mathematics. Over centuries, this habit created a population highly skilled in intellectual work. When the modern economy shifted from farming to trade, industry, and finance, Jews were already prepared. They weren't stuck in the fields. They were ready for professions that required calculation, strategy, and negotiation. Now fast forward to the 19th and 20th centuries. Industrialization was transforming Europe and America. Banking, trade, and manufacturing exploded. And here, Jews became central players. Think of the Rothschilds in Europe, perhaps the most famous Jewish family in history. Starting as small moneylenders, they built a banking empire stretching across London, Paris, Frankfurt, Vienna, and Naples. They financed governments, wars, and railroads. At their peak, the Rothschilds were called the richest family in the world. Then there were the Warburgs in Germany, another dynasty of bankers who shaped global finance. And across Eastern Europe, Jewish merchants dominated textile trade and export industries. In America, the story took another twist. Waves of poor Jewish immigrants fled persecution in Russia and Eastern Europe in the late 1800s. They arrived in New York with nothing, often working in sweatshops. But they brought with them skills in tailoring, trading, and business. Many started tiny shops. Within a few decades, those small shops grew into massive companies. In fact, the American film industry itself was built almost entirely by Jewish immigrants. Warner Brothers, Paramount, MGM, Universal, all founded by Jews. They didn't just join Hollywood, they created Hollywood. And with it, they shaped the culture of the entire 20th century. Now let's look at today. The Jewish footprint in global wealth is staggering. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, Jewish. Sergey Brin, the co-founder of Google, Jewish. Larry Ellison, founder of Oracle and one of the richest men alive, Jewish. Michael Bloomberg, media mogul and former mayor of New York, Jewish. George Soros, hedge fund legend and one of the most influential philanthropists, Jewish. Carl Icahn, Wall Street investor, Jewish. And the list doesn't stop there. From real estate empires to Hollywood studios, from Silicon Valley to Wall Street, Jewish billionaires are everywhere. According to Forbes, Jews make up around 30% of American billionaires despite being only 2% of the US population. Worldwide, Jews account for around 40% of the top 100 richest people. So the question comes back, how? 1. Education. Jewish families push their children to excel academically. It's not just encouraged, it's expected. That's why Jews are overrepresented in Ivy League schools, law, medicine, and finance. And in industries where brains matter more than brute force, this translates directly into success. 2. Community. Jewish networks are strong. They help each other with business contacts, mentorship, and capital. In an economy where who you know is often as important as what you know, this support system is a huge advantage. 3. Resilience. Centuries of persecution created a survival mindset. Jews had to be adaptable, mobile, and creative. If they were expelled from one country, they rebuilt in another. This resilience made them natural entrepreneurs, ready to take risks and seize opportunities. But with wealth comes suspicion. For centuries, conspiracy theories have swirled around Jewish influence. From the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, a completely fabricated text, to modern accusations of controlling Wall Street and Hollywood, these myths fuel anti-Semitism. Now, are Jews disproportionately successful in finance and media? Yes, that's a fact. But does that mean there's a secret conspiracy? No. It's the result of history, culture, and circumstance. Most Jews are not billionaires, most are ordinary people. But the few who succeed often succeed spectacularly. Philanthropy and power. Like Rockefeller, many Jewish billionaires use philanthropy as a tool. George Soros funds political movements and education programs worldwide. Zuckerberg and his wife pledged billions for science and health. Michael Bloomberg has donated billions to public health, education, and climate change. On one hand, this generosity improves millions of lives. On the other, it raises the same question we asked with Rockefeller. Are these acts purely out of goodwill, or are they also about influence, legacy, and shaping society according to their vision? Because when billionaires give away billions, they don't just help, they also steer. They decide what problems get solved, what causes get attention, and what technologies are funded. That's real power. So what do we take away from this? The Jewish story is one of paradox, a people so small in number, yet so large in influence. A history marked by persecution, yet producing some of the world's greatest financiers, entrepreneurs, and thinkers. A culture that treasures education, community, and resilience, and those very values turned into wealth and power in the modern age. Is it fair that 0.2% of the world controls such a big share of its wealth? Maybe not. But is it surprising, given the history and culture behind it? Not really. At the end of the day, Jewish success is both inspiring and controversial. Inspiring because it shows the power of resilience and education. Controversial because it concentrates so much wealth and power in such a small group. And whether you admire it or criticize it, one thing is undeniable. You cannot tell the story of global wealth without telling the story of the Jews. Now, if you've stuck with me till the end, I want you to drop your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into history, money, and power.